Hi and welcome back to Love English. So today's lesson, actually more of a test. Now I know that word probably sends chills down your spine, but actually this test is designed to help you, to motivate you, to notice where you can start improving on your English and areas that you are already doing incredibly well in. What do we mean by fluent? It seems to be kind of a buzzword that's used a lot online these days, and it's something that you all want to achieve. Well, fluency is simply the ability to express yourself easily and accurately. We can be referring to speech as well as the written form of English, or indeed any language. And so often you guys want to know, are you becoming fluent? Now, I'm giving you criteria, 16 criteria to see if you are achieving a level of fluency or indeed are already fluent in English or any other language. If you can tick 5 of these 16 boxes, then you are on your way to becoming fluent. The reality is, fluency is a process. Learning a language takes time, dedication, and hard work. You are not going to become fluent overnight. I wish I could wave a Harry Potter wand and make you all fluent. It is just going to take some time. Now, hopefully, by subscribing to Love English, you are already on your journey to become fluent in English. Make sure, if you haven't already, you do click that subscribe button as well as that notification bell. That will mean you'll be notified of our lessons as soon as they become available to you. Make sure that you comment in the box below, share some of your tips to become fluent. Tell me what your score is. How many of the 16 criteria have you already achieved? And which ones will you be working on in the future? This should help us develop lessons for you with the aim of helping you achieve fluency in English. Now, if you didn't already know, Sabrah and I do work at a University Pathways college, which means we are preparing students to study in a foreign country, in a foreign language, in English. So we teach skills, but we also have to focus on fluency in speaking. So some of the criteria I have here today actually come from university preparation speaking exams. Hopefully that will help inform you and, like I said, give you something to work on. So, are you ready to take the test? So the 16 criteria that means you are fluent in English. Number 1, you no longer use Google Translate. I love Google Translate. I think it is brilliant for many students to use. However, when you really are trying to become fluent in English, it's much better to limit your use of Google Translate. Why? Well, because when you do try and translate a word or even a phrase, often it's not perfectly accurate. And also, when you try explaining a word that you've translated in English, you won't know how. You'll simply know the equivalent in your language. Make sure that you do download a good dictionary app. That means you're going to be looking at the description, the definition in English. So even if you forget that word, you'll be able to describe it and explain yourself, which really means you're on the way to becoming fluent. Number 2, you recognize accents and dialects in English. Now, I'm not going to try doing any accents for you today. That's kind of Sabrah's speciality. But if you do start to notice those very subtle differences, sometimes quite strong, then it means you're becoming aware of the different sounds within the language and the different accents, which is just incredible. So number 2, you're aware of different accents and dialects in English, even if that is just the difference between British and American accents. Still pretty impressive. Number 3, you no longer need to translate in your head. Now that also means that you're able to speak much quicker, much faster. Taking the time to think about something in your own language process it, and then explain in English is really time consuming. When you're able to just speak without thinking and without even considering your L1, your mother tongue language, that really is a sure sign you are becoming fluent. Number 4, you know when you're making mistakes, whether that is pronunciation or grammar. Now, when you start to realize the common errors that you're making, you'll start to correct yourself naturally, which means you're becoming more fluent, but you are also able to improve your English. You can still have a few errors when you speak and be considered fluent, but of course you do want to avoid them. So, doing something like recording yourself, videoing yourself as you speak in English, and noticing those little errors you are making really is going to make all the difference and help you develop your fluency. Number 5, your accent and your pronunciation does not interfere with communication. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have an accent and still be fluent. Of course you can. When we are marking the speaking tests, we are looking for barriers that means we can't understand the person talking, the student talking, and having a very thick or heavy accent, or indeed certain pronunciation mistakes that really do interfere with our understanding, our comprehension, mean that that student really isn't fluent enough. So when people do not have a problem understanding you, that is amazing, and it really does mean you're on your way to becoming fluent. Now, again, how do you improve this if you think you've got a really strong accent, or if you're getting words wrong and people aren't understanding you? Simply slow down and make sure that you are speaking clearly, enunciate, make sure that you're pronouncing all the letters, even if it feels more than you need to do. In the beginning, this is going to help you be understood by other people. And again, recording yourself, listening to your accent, learning what sounds in your language are often mispronounced. In Arabic, you've got p and b. They get confused. In Korean, Chinese, Asian language, you've got l and r. Practice those sounds that are difficult in your language. That will help you become much more fluent. Number 6, you suddenly find that you can understand without trying. So you don't need to ask people to slow down or repeat themselves. And even if there's 1 or 2 words that you might not know, you've got the ability to understand what they mean. You can understand meaning from context. You are not going to learn every single word in English or any language. Even I don't know all the words in English. But you can take an educated guess based on the context of the conversation, and you're able to understand without difficulty. A sure sign you're becoming fluent.
Whoops. Okay, guys, sorry about that, but I seem to have forgotten number 7 while I was filming. Eek! Well, it happens. So, number 7 is you can use technical and subject-specific vocabulary. This is another one that comes from the speaking exam criteria at the university we work at. It's really important that when you are fluent, you have a wider range of vocabulary, not just the general everyday words that we use regularly. So, technical vocabulary would cover things like vocabulary related to your job, your career, or your field of study. It really shows that you've got a broad range of language and vocabulary, and that you really are becoming rather fluent. So, can you use technical, subject-specific vocabulary?
Number 8, you can use grammatical structures and tenses without difficulty. It comes naturally and easily. You don't have to think, should I be using the past simple or the present perfect? It just comes naturally. That means that not only have you learnt the grammar correctly, but you're also able to use it within a natural context. And again, this isn't going to happen overnight. This takes both a lot of academic study, looking at those structures, understanding how we use it, but it also means that you've been around English, you've been immersed in English. So you're able to notice the subtle differences in some of the tenses that we use. And of course, use them naturally. Again, becoming more aware of the tenses simply requires you making an effort to listen as well as use the grammar. So pay attention in films, look at the structure, even have the subtitles on sometimes to make you more aware of the grammar tenses and when we use them. Number 9, you don't get stuck. There is no how do you say? You don't need to pause. Even when you can't think of that word, you're able to get around it. You're able to either describe the word or think of a synonym. So you're really not pausing. You're able to speak fluently without long pauses. Of course, a few pauses. It's a natural part of how we all speak. Even I do it. Everyone does it. But those long, silent, awkward pauses where you're thinking, they really happen less frequently. And of course, this is another good reason to stop using Google Translate. Number 10. Now, this is a tricky one, and I do think this is a really strong sign you are becoming fluent in a language. You understand jokes. Now, whether that is the rather witty, dry sense of humour that us Brits have, or the more slapstick, obvious humour that the Americans have, you become aware and you enjoy it. You can watch a comedian in English and you'll laugh at the jokes. Very often, humour is about the culture, but also about having a good knowledge of the language. So things like puns are a natural part of humour that we use. So for example, a man says to 2 women, "So ladies, where are you from?" And the ladies reply, "Wales." And the man says, "Oh, sorry, where are you 2 whales from?" Bad joke, but I read it today, so I thought I'd use it as an example. So humour. Again, you really do have to be around the culture and have an excellent knowledge of the language to understand some of those rather bad jokes. Okay, number 11. Now, as a teacher, I have to grade my language. Doesn't mean I have to say that the way I speak is A, B, C. It just means that depending on the level of student, I make sure that I might simplify my language so they can understand me more easily. Things like using less phrasal verbs, speaking more clearly. I have to make sure that when I'm teaching different levels in English, they can understand what I'm saying. They can follow me. Now, when you're in a situation that you're talking with a native speaker or even speakers, if you find that they are not trying to speak slower, more clearly, or using big words, idioms, phrasal verbs, then that means they have confidence in you and your ability to understand, and they think that you are fluent in English. So that is a great sign that you really are progressing in your English and have learnt the language, well, almost perfectly. Number 12, you dream in English. Now, I'm curious to know whether it's English or any other of your 2nd, 3rd, 4th languages. At what stage did you guys start dreaming, if at all? It's something that I've heard from many of my students, that they found they started dreaming in the 2nd language they were learning. Now, that's amazing. We know that dreams are part of our subconscious. So if your subconscious is communicating to you in English or your 2nd, 3rd language, that's a wonderful sign that you really are becoming fluent on a whole other level. So let me know, have you guys had any dreams in English or in your 2nd, 3rd, 4th language? What you guys are doing is amazing. Learning another language is so difficult, and I have so much admiration for all of you. So let me know, have you had a dream in English? Okay, number 13. Now, many of you know that I have an Italian boyfriend. And of course, we mainly communicate in English, although I am working on my Italian. He's told me, and I've noticed actually, that sometimes he'll forget the word in Italian. He's living in England at the moment, so he's mainly communicating in English. His fluency level has improved so much since moving to the UK, and I'm very proud of him. Well done, honey. So when you start to forget the word in your own language, obviously not permanently, but it just shows that you really are thinking in that language, in your second language. So, have any of you been in a situation that you've been speaking English and you've forgotten the word in your own language? Interesting one. Okay, number 14, and it's kind of obvious. It's about maintaining a conversation. Conversation is, again, one of those popular buzzwords. You all want to be able to have a conversation in English. Now, what equates to a good conversation is when you kind of talk to someone and you actually come away from the situation feeling that you've learned something and you feel energized. Obviously, when it's in a second language, that's much harder to achieve. So, if you have had a great conversation with somebody, whether they are a native speaker or non-native, maintained the conversation, come away, learned something from that conversation, and also feel that you've imparted, as a nice word, imparted some knowledge and actually have a great conversation in English. Number 15. Now this is an interesting one because I've left this till last. I think this is actually quite difficult for some of you. Songs in English. Now we know that singers, songwriters, when they sing, it's kind of, you don't always hear the words. Sometimes it's not grammatically correct. And it's really difficult to decipher exactly what they're saying. So if you've got to the level that you can understand a song in English, even those difficult rock songs, that really is a great sign that you have become fluent. Or even if you can just understand most of the song. Certainly there's a few singers and bands that I don't quite understand. The same goes for movies. When you can watch a film, movie, American English, and you don't need subtitles, what a fantastic sign that you are becoming fluent. You should really, by this stage, be feeling very confident in your English language ability. Now, finally, number 16, people are impressed with your English. Wow, where are you from? How did you learn English so well? I would never have guessed English was your second language. If any of you have had some of those comments, then that is amazing. Congratulations, you really have become fluent in English. Now, if there are any signs, any criteria that you think I should have included, then make sure that you comment in the box below. You can also tell me your score. I would say that if you can tick 5 out of the 16, that's brilliant. Give yourself a pat on the back. It's a great sign that you are working really hard and you have a great knowledge of the language. So, let me know your score. Let me know if there are any other tips, tricks, or criteria that you think we could include in this fluency test. And remember, think about those areas where you are perhaps weaker that you can improve on. Don't feel that you should be disappointed, but set yourself goals to help achieve the full 16 out of 16 in the fluency test. And don't forget, make sure that you click down there, that subscribe button, click on the notifications bell until it looks like this, and sign up to the Love English community. We are here to help you become fluent, improve your English language skills, and help you love the language.